Today I would like to present you how to reference the data from the internal state of the workflow. This is a very important thing because this is the way you process the data. As you know, Tracardi collects events, profiles and sessions, and you can see this data here. But now we will go and see how we can process the data that comes with every event. As you probably know, each event has a profile and a session. This data is referenced inside the workflow, so when we run a workflow and click on the start node or check node, you can see that there is a state. And this is a profile data, event data, and session data. When you click on it, you can see this data. And the state is connected to each node in the workflow. So if one node changes the internal state, you can always check it here and see how the, for example, profile changed. So let's start and let's see how we can reference the internal data in our nodes. For example, this node returns a payload that is test equals 1. This is what I defined here and injected it into payload. Right now I would like to cut out some data from the internal state. I would like to cut out data from profile, and I would like to cut out an ID. Let's run the workflow and we can see cut out trait here, and let's see the output. We can see the profile ID. Now let's cut out some object because we actually cut out the value, but I would like to cut out some part of the profile. So let's cut out all the PII personal data and let's save it, and let's go again and see here is the personal data that's on this port trait. So this is how you reference the data and how you can cut out it to the payload, process it, and then you can obviously copy it into the profile. One important thing here with this component is that it has different sources. So you can see that you can take the data, reference the data from event, session, payload, and even flow. Right here you have all the paths to data, and you can also, as I showed you before, reference part of this path. One important thing is that when you cut out the value, for example, cut out the timestamp, and when you do this, actually there's no value probably in the timestamp. When you do this, then you will see that this timestamp will be a string. If you would like to evaluate it and make it a datetime object, then you have to click on this node. Actually, when you see fx here, it means this data will be evaluated by some function and it will return a datetime object, or if this reference data is a Boolean value like true and false, then it will return true or false, not a string. When we go and see the JSON configuration, you can see how this reference is saved. When we evaluate the data, it's in the backticks like this. When you go here and we do not evaluate it, let's save it, you can see that there are no backticks. And the source is before at, and after the at we have a dotted notation that is a path to the value. Anytime we change it here, it will change in the configuration. The other way to deliver a value is when you click on add, you can see that it changed to the different component, and if you type here any data like 1, 2, 3, it will return this value. It is not a reference, this is a value. Another thing is that when you reference a value, it is returned on the payload, but sometimes you would like to create a payload like an object built of different values. We can use this node, it's called make payload, and it actually is some kind of mapper that can map values and attach it to the object. Right here we have a simple object that has A, B, and C properties. This property will have a value that is referenced from profile, and I typed here missing value. That means that this value does not exist. When you run this value will be referenced, but notice that I've checked here that all the missing values will be equal to null. This one is missing, so it will be null, a will equal to null. B is an optional value. It means that if it does not exist and this value does not exist, then the whole value, the whole key will disappear. And this one references a value that exists, so we should see a null and see a value of an event ID. So let's go to make payload and see the output, and here we go, A is null and C is event ID. Right now, let's do something like this. I will type here some value. It means that this value exists, but this value does not. So we should see B equal to 2. Okay, let's run it again. And oh, I didn't save it, sorry. Again, and here we go. We have a null, the first value is a number, and then a C. If we provide value that exists here, so like a profile ID, it should have 2 values with the profile ID as a second value. Here we go. This is very important note. So it means that you can just reshape the internal state of the workflow and then return it on the output port as a payload, and then you can use set trait and copy it to profile. This is what I'm doing here. I'm setting a traits private Z setting to payload. 3 dots means everything that is in the payload. Check it in the state, and here we go. I have a traits private Z set to the value of payload, and this value was reshaped by this make payload node. And that's it. This is actually how the workflow is working and how you can reference the data that is in the internal state of the workflow.